Hi there and welcome to my channel. Today we are making fresh pasta by hand. In the bowl I already had 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and to that I added a half a teaspoon of salt. I am now mixing 2 eggs that I'm going to add to a well that I made in the middle of my flour. And I'm adding 1 teaspoon of cooking oil or olive oil and 1/3 cup of water. This recipe comes straight out of the Better Homes and Gardens cookbook. It is one of my husband and I's favorite cookbooks that we've ever had. Lots of cookbooks have come and gone, but that one, that's a keeper. Better Homes and Gardens. It's like a 1980 something edition. It's perfect. I'm mixing this dough with the fork as long as I can, and then once the crumblies at the bottom won't mix in, I just use my hand in the bowl to press down, not really kneading per se at this point, but I just want to get those crumblies that are on the bottom. Now I flour a work surface because this is the time where you'll need to knead this dough for approximately 8 minutes. In the beginning, it'll feel a little bit crumbly, and as you go on, it will get this beautiful smooth texture. Now you're going to say, Annette, this feels hard to do when you near the end of your 8 minutes. And if you're nearing the end of your 8 minutes and your dough is really nice and smooth and no longer sticky, you don't need to continue. At that point, it's okay to let it rest. Well, the recipe says to let it rest for 10 minutes, but you know what? I just put this dough into a bowl and let it rest while I'm preparing the food that's going along with it. Myself and the dough is much happier after it rests. So I'm just making a classic spaghetti sauce for this with ground beef. This is my frozen spaghetti sauce that I make. I'll link how I do that at the end of this video if you'd like to see it. Once I brown my ground beef, I just add my frozen spaghetti sauce in there and I let the tomatoes reduce and the liquid come out of everything. These flavors are dynamite, you guys. So I'm putting a lid on that while I work on rolling out my pasta. I am adding some flour to a freshly cleaned work surface. You don't want any of the old dry dough bits on there from when you were kneading it. I cut this in half. For 3 adults, half of this recipe is perfect serving size for supper. We feel satisfied and happy when we're done. You can see how beautiful that dough is. I just coat it nicely with some flour. Because I am making spaghetti with this, I am going to roll it out as thin as I can. But you don't want it so thin that it tears the dough. You want to be able to still move it around, and part of that will happen because you keep flouring your surface and your dough as you're working with it. So sometimes we just do it the old-fashioned rustic way and cut it with a pizza cutter. But tonight I'm going to show you this fancy, not so fancy way of folding your dough so that you can cut it into precisely the same size of strips. Super easy, just requires lots of flour. So I'm folding it onto itself a couple of times. I'm flouring each layer as I go so that it doesn't stick to itself, because otherwise all your work is for naught. And right now, I apologize to any Nonas out there that are watching me make this dough, but you guys, this recipe I find is foolproof as long as you follow it. These are fairly fragile, so you want to be gentle with them. You don't have to spread them all out like that. I was just doing that for you to see what it looks like. If you would like to store this pasta in the fridge to use for tomorrow, just cover it with a generous sprinkle of flour and toss it like that, and make sure you put it on kind of a wide plate so that it has room to spread out. I'm saving this second half for tomorrow night because I'm going to be making a lasagna with it. Generously salt your water to boil for the noodles. Now these noodles, you guys, only take about 2 minutes to cook. Don't overcook them. And when you are adding them to the pot like this, more water is better especially because of the flour that we added in there. It's going to cause your water to get pretty frothy and bubbly. Absolutely imperative that you use a fork or something to separate your noodles at this point as they're starting to cook. Otherwise, you're just going to end up with a giant glob of noodles and you're going to be mad at Annette. You can see that they're starting to cook and separate on their own now, so they're all good. I'm just testing how done these pasta noodles are. My general rule is if they all start to float, they're pretty done. So I was happy with that and I drained that, and then I added a little bit of olive oil to the pasta. Don't need to do this step if you don't want to. I just find that it helps to keep the noodles a little bit separated. I portioned out 3 servings for an adult onto these plates. I added my meat sauce and some fresh basil from our hydroponics, as well as some Parmesan cheese. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you give this a go. Take care. Bye for now.